Hello, this is Cryptolyze. I hope you are well. This Tuesday, 26 September 2023, it is with pleasure that we meet today to talk about LDO, LIDO's crypto. As usual, we will dissect it into two parts. A fundamental part, we will come back to what the LDO is, what LIDO is, and its current affairs. Then we will move into the technical part to project ourselves on medium long-term prices, on purchase prices, sale prices, and that starts right away. Before talking about LIDO, we must necessarily explain what proof of staking is, because LIDO is a protocol that allows you to do proof of staking without blocking your tokens and very easily. So what is proof of staking? It is a consensus which is used in the different blockchains, and in particular in Ethereum since the passage of Homerg. And the advantage that this has is that we will actually block these tokens, therefore these ethers within the framework of Ethereum, to protect the protocol. So this is something that is important for the protection of the protocol, for the blockchain itself. And at the same time, we are remunerated with an Ethereum emission. It is approximately between 4 and 6%, and depending on the times and depending on the number of Ethereum that are stacked. So what is the big advantage of LIDO? It's liquid stacking. The principle of liquid staking is to be able to set up these ethers. For example, normally when we want to protect the Ethereum blockchain through proof of stake, we must have 32 ethers which we must block. We cannot recover them immediately. We must operate an operator node to be able to validate the different blocks. Passing through LIDO, we will regroup with several people. So we will delegate our ethers to LIDO, who himself will recompose the 32 with others. People create the node, manage it, and set up everything that happens alongside it. And in exchange, they will give us a steth. This steth is the representation of our ETH, which are stacked, which we can sell or place, for example, on AAV to recover either a small return or to borrow money. It's the notion of liquidity that comes into this. That is to say that this component that we are given, which is generally the receipt for the deposit of ETH, is generally that it's as if, for example, you deposit a watch with a lender and they give you a receipt. And this receipt represents the watch that is with the lender. You can actually resell it if you wish. But it's a bit like this idea. It's something that we're seeing a lot again with debts, in which companies resell their debts to certain clients to be able to recover cash. And the IDOT is a bit in this idea. That is to say that we give you a receipt, which represents your ETH, which is stacked, and you earn rewards, which are in fact reduced costs. That they will take, it's really this principle, and it's very important because it makes it possible to provide accessibility to, for example, stacking on Ethereum. So they don't just do Ethereum, they do Polygon, they do Solana, they have others that are arriving. Clearly they are specializing in that, but really their core business is Ethereum. And this is where they have the biggest stacking. We are talking about 13 billion. It must be not far from 14 billion. Now, dollars in Ethereum, which are stacked and which has raised a lot of questions, because one is a form of centralization. That means that I believe we have the equivalent of 20% of the ethers which are stacked and which pass through LIDO. So if we ever have a problem with the LIDO protocol, it can hurt a lot. But at the same time, there are no 36 solutions. We have to go through third-party protocols to be able to access stacking if we don't have 32 ethers. So it's not just LIDO, there are others. There's Rocket Pool, there's Stater, there are lots of things that come into play. But in this case, we have an interest in do that because it's easy to be able to stake your ethers without necessarily having behind the counterparts, whether it's the fact of having 32 ethers, of having a node, of managing this node. Finally there has a certain number of costs which are effective. So why am I talking about LIDO? Because it is by far the most profitable protocol that exists on the blockchain currently. So I think that it is not the most profitable now at the moment T, but it is systematically part of the top 2 or even top 3 maximum. And it has very often been top 1. For what? Because we see, I'm just going to enlarge a little bit so that you can see a little more. We have 650 million on average in fees when it's annualized. It's enormous. This means that it is a money printing machine while we have a diluted cap mark, which is 16 billion. If I had to buy shares in the company LIDO, clearly I would do so because we are currently paying 3 times the profits, meaning that when we are in a stock market, we are more around 12, 15. That's when we is at 15. We know that it is roughly the usual average. 12 means that it is underrated. When we are above, that means that it is on the side, and there we are at 3, 4 times. In fact, the profits generated while we are in a bear market, we must take into account. Consider that. On the other hand, the LDO is not an action of LIDO. Take that into consideration. What is LDO? The token itself is a governance token that allows you to manage the platform, configure the different pools, the processing. It will also be something that will manage reward slashing on oracles in particular. Well, it is for managing the protocol, but it is not an action part. If I were ever told right away that LDO holders receive part of the platform's income, I can tell you that I would have 20%, 30% of my bag, which would be an LDO. That's not the case, unfortunately. So it is a protocol which is very interesting, which is very useful. But the token itself is a token really purely of governance. The operation in itself, we can clearly see that we have the rewards which are given. We have the sampling which is carried out at the platform level and which is given at the platform level, and in which we have the stacker who recovers 90% of the girls. So there are 10% of the girls who are recovered by the platform. But once again, this is not redistributed to the LDO holders. In any case, as it stands, and it is not intended to be, while being so, once again, their vocation is also to offer a stacking service in a form of SaaS through DVT, which is a technology which is arriving on Ethereum, which will allow to be able to promote the decentralization of stacking, therefore limit the risks of LIDO, and behind it to facilitate, finally, limit slashing, limit fees, and at the same time facilitate the inclusion of different Ethereum holders, regardless of the number of Ethereum that they have. So overall, we have something that will clearly increase in revenue, in which we will have an additional valuation of LIDO, the company in any case, what is behind it, what values LIDO. But is it that the LDO will have a valuation proportional to the evolution of cash flow? Clearly, if that were the case, I can tell you that we would not be in a market supply of circulating supply of 1.6 billion. We would be almost at X10, X16 on it, because it is completely logical. It is one of the protocols that pays the most and yet is the least valued. So there, if you're going to tell me, yes, I am. For example, Ethereum earns much more than it distributes. So at that moment, by owning ethers, we have a return which is determined, but the valuation of Ethereum in relation to the effective return we have is still much lower. I completely agree with you, and that's why I'm talking to you about it, is that LDO, you have to understand the limits, but that doesn't mean that you can't have a valuation additional token, which is linked to the general valuation of the LIDO protocol. And currently, I tend to consider that it is a protocol that is undervalued, but is the token undervalued compared to the protocol? That is up to you to determine, are you taking the risk, namely that you are not buying a share of LIDO, but a governance token? Take these elements into consideration. So then we will attack the technical part, which is relatively simple because we are in a form of lateralization while we are in a bear market, while we are in a dilution phase. Take that into consideration. When we see this type of graph, when we have just eaten a minus 80% on BTC over the last 2 years, and that basically we are in a dilution of the token, which is relatively important because they have made quite a campaign to give tokens to the different protocols to promote the injection of liquidity, therefore the increase in the number of tokens which are stacked on the platform. Well, I want to tell you it's relatively bullish. It's relatively bullish in which we have a bullish structure that is taking place, in which we have something that is really strong, in which we have highs that are higher and higher, lows that are higher and higher too, and in which we have breathing with a form of structuring which is taking place here with a small accumulation. For me, we have something that is really clean. What I am going to wait for is going to be a retracement in the 786, 886, really this little area there. For me, it is the perfect entry into the $1 in which I will enter at the LDO level. In any case, I will strengthen part of the position that I already have. We're going to test a large part of imbalance here. So there we have an imbalance which has been partially filled, and we see that the other half remains. And that's why I'm telling you that we're going to go and retest, for me, this order block in which, in addition, we had the ranging zone, which was very strong in the December period 2022. We had FTX, which is here, and then the period of neutrality, which was relatively hard to live with almost a year ago, a few months ago. In a few months, it will be a year. So at least we are going to retest this period overall around the same period. It seems to me almost logical. So there we would have a nice entrance to be able to structure ourselves. So what can we aim for as a target here at the LDO level? We are going to be in a form of price discovery. So there are several ways to do it. We can do it with Fibonacci. Here in this case, I would rather like to do it in a form of market cap structuring. That means that we are on a diluted market cap of 1.6 billion. For me, I tend to tell you that in a bull market, we will have an injection of liquidity which risks being relatively significant, particularly on Ethereum. With an importance of stacking, which risks being relatively as important at the level of Ethereum, even if we are going to have a reduction in Ethereum stacking. Why? Because quite simply, people will buy Ethereum, but those that they have already stacked during the bear market will take them out and will sell them to make a profit. So we will arrive in a form of balance. We will follow the trend of liquidity injection. So I think we can go easily. Look for something that will be around 15, 20, 25 billion market cap, which brings us to a current price potentially of 15, 16, 17, perhaps $25 at the LDO level, namely that we would finish diluting, we would have other stakings arriving, and still obviously a protocol that cannot be hacked. So that is super important. We are careful. Because when we have a protocol that handles 13 billion, 14 billion, I can tell you that there are a lot of attacks that are present on LIDO. Even if it is something that is excessively protected, we are not never safe, even as we saw with Curve Finance, in which we had an effective hack, even though it was a platform that had almost never really been hacked. So we are in something where we are protect. You don't put all your eggs in one basket. At the Steth level, we are careful. There are other protocols that exist. We perhaps need to spread our risks in relation to that and not always put our eggs in the same basket. And if we ever have a hack, inevitably, on the other hand, the LDO will take a huge slap in the face. And don't forget, the LDO is a governance token. It is not intended to have a redistribution of costs. I hope you liked this video. If so, don't forget to leave me a like and a comment. It always makes me very happy. And we'll see you at 7 o'clock for the daily. Little special announcement, don't forget, Sunday, October 1, 18, I'm going to do a live on YouTube. It's been a very long time since I've done one, so don't miss this opportunity to ask me all your questions. It's Sunday, October 1, 18.